Hi everyone and welcome back to the Colour Cave where we like to play with art stuff. It's Jem here. Just before we make a little start today, I want to talk about some exciting items I've got in the stash shop. Some of you may remember a while back that I did a community spotlight for the online art store Eclectic Erudite, and that's run by a lovely lady called Jessie, who I've gotten to know quite well over the last little while. And Jessie had a wonderful selection of colouring sheet packs as well as lots of really nice bug designs that I fell in love with, and I've actually bought some of her cushions. So Jessie's circumstances have changed. She has gotten a new day job and she's no longer able to run her website and her store alongside her day job. So some of her stock has arrived at the cave and we're going to make it available to you guys. I feel as if that no one should miss out on her art because she's a very talented lady and I think you could get a lot of fun out of some of her supplies. So keep your eyes peeled. Over the next 2 or 3 weeks I will be adding some of her items up for sale, and I'm hoping that you will go and take a look and you will get to indulge yourself in some of her beautiful artwork, whether it's just to look at because it's pretty or whether you want something more practical. There'll be something there for everyone. So today we are going to be doing a comparison between the traditional soft pastel sticks and the Panpastels. And this is really just to help you see the differences between the two, where the similarities are, especially if you're maybe looking to invest in some pastels, maybe you're new to pastels, or maybe you're just a little bit curious about the Panpastels. I'm going to keep this purely as a comparison video. I am going to try one of the artful tutorials with the Panpastels just for a giggle to see what's going to happen, but that'll be in a couple of weeks' time. So we'll start with the obvious things first of all. Let's look at the physical aspects of the differences between these two types of pastels. So obviously I have the artful sets of pastels that came in our latest subscription box from them, but some of these things can be applied to all brands of soft pastels. I do own some of the Rembrandt Pastels as well, so we can talk a little bit about them, but really this comparison is between stick soft pastels and Panpastels. So the glaringly obvious, stick pastels unsurprisingly come in a stick format like this, and they vary. Some are square, some are cylindrical, and they also come in varying sizes as in lengths as well. These little Rembrandt ones come in half sticks, and I think they come in full sticks as well, but you can see they're quite diddly, they're quite small, and say roughly half the size of the artful ones. So they're quite varied in terms of that, and if you look through all the different brands, you'll be sure to find something that fits your purpose. You can buy stick pastels individually, but you can also buy them in themed sets like this. This is a desert palette, so it's supposed to be a range of colours that go well together and you could use to create that sort of piece. With the artful pastels, we got a set of 24, which was the original box. That was the big box, this one here. And then there was the additional sets available that were certain colour groups. So there was reds into yellows, and then there was also a kind of blues and greens box as well. So you've got lots of variety and lots of chances to sort of mix and match to suit your needs. The Panpastels, you can buy these individually and you can also buy these in sets as well, and very similarly to the likes of this Rembrandt set, they usually come in theme sets. I know they do a portrait set, so it's a lot of colours that will involve, skin tones, earthy tones, that kind of thing, the more neutral tones. This is an individual one, so this is how they come to you, and it's very much, I always liken it to a blusher compact or a bronzer compact. So they've got this screw off lid and it is a flat surface, and basically the depth of that screw part is full of this compressed soft pastel. So there's 9 millilitres of pastel within one of these pans. And they also stack as well, because on the bottom there is actually a screw thread in the bottom of the pan as well. So if you start to amass a large collection of them like myself, which has been done over a long time, I hasten to add, you can actually take these lids off Keep them aside, keep them for spares, do what you want, and then you can stack the other ones on top and they just screw in. So they're nice and clean and tidy to store, and that's one of the things I really like about them. Although they do take up a substantial amount of space because of the size of this pan, they're actually really easy to store and it keeps mess to a minimum. So I would say that's one advantage straight away of pan pastels over chalk pastels. A lot of people keep these in wooden boxes and, you know, group them by colours or whatever. It gets quite dusty and, you know, sort of messy in there, and I would recommend buying yourself some sort of storage rather than just keeping them in all these little separate boxes if you're going to, you know, build up a collection of them. So I want to talk about price as well, because this is one of the main things that puts people off pan pastels. One of these individual pans, now obviously this varies by country and it also varies by what's going on in the world, because in the UK just now everything's super expensive. One of these pans at the moment in the UK will set you back anywhere between £7 and £10. They are very, very expensive. Pre-COVID and pre-Brexit and all that sort of stuff, I had seen them advertised for anywhere between sort of £5 and £7, so they have gone up in price. It may differ where you are in the world. In comparison, we have one of these add-on sets that came from Artful, and we've already discussed that these are pretty nice. You know, they're pretty good quality pastels, and this little set of 12 was retailing at £20 if you buy them straight from the website as is. In terms of variety and choice of colours, if you're looking for a wide range of colours, the stick pastels are going to be much more cost effective, whereas you would have to buy, you know, a big set of these like the portrait set, or you're going to be spending a lot of money buying a lot of individual pans. So it depends very much on what your purpose is and at what stage in your pastel journey you are at. If you are a colourist, and this is the way that I did it with pan pastels, if you're a colourist and it's something that you want to invest in, pick one or two colours that you know that you'll use frequently for backgrounds. And for me, that I was thinking about the sky, so I bought a couple of blues, and I bought a really nice pink colour, and I also picked out a sort of greyish shade as well, just to start me off to see how I was going to get on with them. You don't really need to go that far with the stick pastels, because you can buy, you know, these smaller sets that are pretty affordable, and that gives you a range of colours to do the same. The next thing I want to talk about is application. Naturally, with your stick pastels, you can just pick them up and off you pop, and you can start laying them down, and you can use them sort of in pencil form if you've got an end like this, and you can also chip little parts off to give you essentially what is a different shaped nib on the end of your chalk pastel. But you also have the option of using it on its side. When we did the tutorial video for Artful, you saw me physically snapping them in half so that I had smaller pieces to work with, and it's much easier to control where you're going with them when you're using them on the side if you've got a slightly smaller piece, because it gives you more precision. But you do have precision with these just because you've got this flat end, and it lets you put in thin lines, or, you know, you can put in slightly thicker lines as well. And it's easy to control your pressure because it's very similar just to using a pen or a pencil or a paintbrush. Now, it's a different story when it comes to pan pastels. What we're going to do, we can't just, you know, no, that doesn't work. So this is one of the downsides to pan pastels. After you've forked out a small fortune and possibly a second mortgage to buy yourself a set of these, you have to have a way of applying these to your paper. Now, you can, of course, just stick your finger in them. That's not a problem. It's a lovely surface to do that on, and you can just go straight onto your paper. However, if you want a bit more precision, then you're going to have to find yourself some tools to work with. One of the most common things that I use that's cheap and readily available is cotton buds, or Q-tips in the US. Anything that you have lying about, like old makeup sponges, are great for it as well. Panpastel do a range of their own tools, and you can purchase them separately. They are relatively inexpensive, and in addition to that, the thing that I like about them is they're a bit more eco-friendly because they're all washable and reusable. So I've got a selection here of some of the things that they offer. So you get sponges of different sizes and shapes, and you can see mine are quite well loved. But you have some here like this with a rounded tip, and you get some wedge shaped ones as well. So there's lots of different things, and you can buy these in like a little variety pack. Again, they're a few pounds. There's one that's got a sort of pinched end at both sides. So they're really, really handy. They also sell what I call an eyeshadow applicator. They sell little packs of these as well, and that gives you a kind of pointed end to give you more precision. What I like most and what I find I use most, especially when it comes to detail, you know, once you've done your kind of backgrounds or whatever you're doing, they have these little plastic handles here, and you can see they've all got slightly different shapes on the ends, and they do sponge applicators specifically to fit these little handles. So you can see here I've got some that have got a sort of oval shape to them. And then if I just work down, you've got really pointy ones. These are very handy. See, when you're starting to go into detail and you need some sharp edges, these are perfect. And basically you just slip these over the end of your little plastic tool like this. And you can basically then use that like a paintbrush. So again, if I was to dip this in here, and that can give you some really, really delicate and slim lines. And in addition, you still got the flexibility to use the other part of the tool as well, and you can use it on its side to cover a larger area. So this is nice because you can actually use your pan pastels without ever getting your fingers dirty. The other thing that I like about it as well is there's very little dust that comes off it when you're actually putting it on the paper. Because it's in this flat pan form, you're only picking up as much as you need, and a little of this goes a really, really long way. And any particles that come off, because this is very, very, very finely ground and then pressed in. So even if you've got any loose pigment, it's actually staying on the pan. And when you're finished, you can just screw the lid back on and it's staying in there. So that's the main reason that I favour these, because I don't like the dust and I don't like the mess. But when you're actually laying it down there, I mean, there's minimal dust coming off of that. If you want to do a similar thing with your stick pastels, and again, I actually like the stick pastels because there's a lot of versatility in them without the price. A lot of people, one of the favourite things to do is to take a craft knife or an X-Acto knife and actually scrape off a little bit off the end of your pastel. So if I just show you here, I have to be very careful with this because my motor skill's not very good with my hand. But you basically just scrape it off the end like this. So you've got this little bit of dust and you can scrape it into whatever you want. And then you can use something like a Q-tip or again just your finger if that's the way you feel. And you can do the same sort of thing, but it is much looser. So when you do that, you're going to have a lot of excess dust. Now if I just zoom in slightly and lift the edge of this paper, can you see how much excess is bouncing about on the paper there? So it does become very messy, and the worst thing that you can do is inhale and blow that off, because you are going to inhale some of that pastel dust. And when you blow it, it's just going to go onto whatever's in front of your desk. Things can get quite dusty. However, you do have that versatility of being able to jump between them. So you can have a little bit loose sitting somewhere, but you've still got your actual stick. So it's very easy for you to jump between using that in that sort of loose format for larger areas or softer areas, and then switching back to stick form in order to maybe put in some details or just define an area a bit more. So the other thing to talk about is colour range. You're not limited with pastels when it comes to colour ranges. Obviously, if you favour a particular brand, you're only limiting yourself with the colour range, but pastels are so easy to mix and blend. So if you don't have a specific colour, if you have a decent colour range in any form of soft pastel, you will be able to make a colour you want. It's the same way as you would with paint. Having said that, the Artful pastels themselves come in 48 colours, if we're going to talk about the Artful ones specifically. The Panpastels come in 92 colours. The Rembrandt Pastel sticks, these come in 218 colours. I personally don't think I would ever have a use for 218 colours, and I'm sure a lot of those are various shades of white in one thing and another. So again, not limited at all on that front. When it comes to laydown, I will compare the three that we're talking about here. So let's try on a larger area first and blending out and see how that goes. And I was going to say something there, but let the cavers make up their own mind. Come on, Jem. So I'm just going to stick with this blue. This was standing out quite well on the paper. In order to make this a fair comparison, I am going to use my finger with all the pastels that we've got here, with all three brands. So starting with the Panpastel, I'm just going to rub my finger in that a little bit, and I'm going to pop down a wee bit here. Now, the first thing you notice about Panpastels, especially when you put your finger in it, is how soft and smooth it is. it just glides on the paper. And just from experience, I know that these behave well on a lot of types of paper, not just pastel paper. And this is why I think although they are expensive, they're favoured by colourists, because quite often the paper is very different from one colouring book to another. And if you've got something you know is this fine, then it's no problem for you. You know, it's not something you have to worry about, and you know that most paper will take it. So I'm just building up a few layers here. That was something else I learned in the tutorial video. See, when it comes to pastels, you've got to put down layers, guys. So there we go. I've not pressed hard at any point. If you were to lightly rub your finger over the back of your hand without actually, you know, indenting into your skin, that's the kind of pressure I'm talking about. You can see there it's built up beautifully, the colour standing out from the paper. And there is, apart from the fact I have a very vibrant finger, there is virtually no dust round about that's come off and is lying on the paper. Okay, so in the Rembrandt set here, I've also found a pale blue. It's a slightly different colour, but for the purposes of what we need it for, that's going to be okay. So the first thing I'm going to do is this scraping technique. And even just scraping that off, it's very, very well compressed and it's fine. And the shavings that are coming off are very uniform in size. Now that's quite helpful, because when it comes to actually putting it down on the paper, then it's going to go down more evenly. So again, I'll just dip my finger in here. And it doesn't want to stick to my finger as well. So here we go. And that's really smooth going down, really, really nice. And again, I'm just doing the same here. I'm just going to build up some layers. So it feels soft. It doesn't feel as soft and silky as the pan pastel, but it feels good. But you can see the dust that's building up, and I'm trying to blend that back in. But in doing that, every time I pull that dust in from the outside, I'm making the actual sample part bigger and bigger and bigger. And that's something to think about as well. You are going to have to blow that dust off. But yeah, there's a lot of it sitting on the paper in comparison to what we had over here with the pan pastel. Okay, I'm just using these pan pastel lids because they're handy. So I'm going to do the same now with the Artful pastel. And I don't know if you can hear that, but that's very dry and scrapey. But the shavings are coming off. Perhaps not just quite as uniform and quite as well as the Rembrandt Pastels, but it's still pretty fine and it looks pretty good from where I'm sitting. And even there I can see dust sitting on the edge of that from the Rembrandt one. Yeah, and it's still there. It's not quite blended into the paper. So let's try with the Artful Pastels now. I'm actually going for another finger. Now again, my finger isn't picking up the pastel nearly as well as it did with the pan pastel. You saw the state of my finger after the pan pastel. And the first thing I'm noticing is that again, you've got to bear in mind that this is a slightly different colour. There doesn't seem to be the same richness and saturation of colour. You know, when you look at it in the pan there, it looks very green and very rich, but when it's coming down here, I feel as if I'm really having to work it. It is blending into the paper's taking it really well, and I'm kind of getting the same thing that I got with the Rembrandt Pastels as well, that there was, you know, there's a lot of sort of excess that doesn't really want to seem to blend in unless I'm like bullying it into doing so. And I would say probably that's one of the main things that pan pastels use as their selling point, the fact that it's very smooth and it's very economical. That is definitely something they use as a selling point for their product. And see this mess factor. So I just want you to take a look at my finger there. It's not nearly, that's just like falling off my finger. It's not nearly as opaque and pastely as my finger was when I was using the pan pastels. Obviously it's not designed to stick to skin, but that's just something to note as I'm going through here. Okay, so again, there's quite a lot of dust. I'll regret that later. So let's look at them for precision now, because this is something that's very important. Pastel paintings aren't all smushy and, you know, people like to do things with precision, and the chap that was featured in the Artful magazine that did the realistic portraits was absolutely stunning. Prime example of a time where you're going to want to have some precision. So let's look at the pan pastels first now. I've got this square-ended tool here. I call these palette knives because the shape of them reminds me very much of a palette knife. Pan pastel have probably got a name for them, but I don't know what it is. And just make sure we've got some on the end of the tool, because that's what we're going to use to make a small line. That's fairly good. And if we turn it on its side, and if I put a little bit on the back of the applicator here, then I can get a much wider sweep. So there you go, that was one sweep, and I'm going to do that with the rest of these as well. Okay, so with these ones, because they're round, this is the Rembrandt Pastel, the middle one, I've chiselled out an edge here. You can see that if I tilt it in the light, in order to simulate what's going on here with this little tool. So if we want to draw a line, we can, but also if I use that chisel edge, then that's emulating what's going on over here. This is where I think it becomes quite apparent what you're dealing with. On that one stroke, can you see the texture of the paper here and here? And look at the pan pastel. Very, very little, until we get down to the bottom of the stroke where we're running out of pastel, as it were. So there you go, that's straight away, that's two different completely characteristic things about the difference between them. These both have their merits and they both have their downfalls. Obviously with your pan pastel, all you do is pop it back in your pan, give it a little dab, and you can go exactly back over where you've been and build up that line so that it's solid all the way down, and you can even go from the bottom up. And you're going to get that same uniform line every single time. With this, you may not have such an easy time because you're following the same print as you were in before. And that's me going back over it. So again, much more even solid colour rather than the texture of the paper showing through. If I just put them side by side, this is really, really smooth. So if you do like a bit of texture in your drawings, obviously it depends very much on the paper as well, but this is pastel paper and it's quite textured, and obviously that's shown up with the soft pastel from Rembrandt. So let's try now with the pastels from Artful as well. We can draw our line just with the very tip. And again, we've got a nice fine line here, and I would say that the precision is probably quite equal. But I've only managed to get that with the pan pastel because I have used a specific tool. If you do not have that particular tool, obviously you're not going to be able to do that. So again, that's a disadvantage of the pan pastels, in that you've got to have these sort of peripheries, but they are very convenient once you've got them. So let's try with this chisel side now. Very similar to what's happened, and you can see there's some residue from the pastel there as well that's kind of got stuck. If I just zoom right in again, you can see how much of the texture of the paper is there. If I go over for a second pass, again in the interest of fairness, and I'll go up the way, it's actually filling in the gaps a little bit better on that second pass than the Rembrandt Pastels. Out of the three of them, the Artful Pastels definitely feel the driest, and I don't think they're dry to a point where they're chalky. You can tell there's a difference in the consistency between the three, and out of the three, this one definitely feels the driest. Now the next thing I want to look at is erasability. And the best way to test this is with a battery operated eraser. I have the Derwent one, and it's a bit like an electric toothbrush. It just goes and spins round and round and round. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And there we go. Again, if I just zoom in a lot here, you can see the pan pastel has disappeared, and it actually disappeared on like the third pass. The Rembrandt pastel, there's a bit of smudgy going on there, a bit of an issue, and the Artful pastel has absolutely 100% disappeared. So if you're anything like me and you're really good at making mistakes, very forgiving. Now, that's all very fair and well because, you know, we ran our pastel over here a couple of times, but what about in areas that where you've absolutely mashed it into the tooth of the paper? Let's find out. And I'm going to go right in the middle, and I'm just going to make myself a wee circle. Now, obviously, there's going to be dust that comes off this because it's going to be eraser shavings as well as the pastel. So we'll just leave that there. Make sure the end of my eraser's clean. Make sure there's no residue. So you can see there that the pan pastel has actually left the most, but it's also travelled the least as well. Most of the shavings around here. I can't say the same for the other two. Everything's just gone wild, but if I tip that off now, I say regrets. I'm going to have a job cleaning this later. Like, oh my goodness. But we'll not worry about that. So you can see that it's fared pretty well, and I would actually say that the Artful Pastel has erased the best. There is literally nothing left in that circle at all. The biggest mark's been left by the Rembrandt Pastels, and the Pan Pastels there is a tiny bit, but it's actually not that noticeable. And I think if we went back in, yeah, Soft pastel as a medium, this is one of the things I like about it. Generally, they are very erasable. It's more about keeping mess to a minimum. Okay, so the next thing I want to test out is the blendability, and this is always one of my favourites. So here's another disadvantage of Panpastels. Unless you're super organised like me, she says, if you have a huge stack of them, sometimes you have to have a bit of a rake through, you know, to find the right one. I normally have mine stacked by types of colours and colour groups. So I have all my bright colours together, I have all my earthy colours together, and then within that stack I go through from lightest to darkest, and that's just the way I like to do things. But obviously in doing this video I've put everything together to prove a point, so I've just kind of shot myself in the foot. Right, there is a red. Now this is red, my goodness, this is red. This is permanent red. Conveniently underneath I have a very offensive yellow colour, and this is Hansa yellow. For this, I'm going to switch tools for the Panpastels. Again, this is another thing as well. It can be quite time consuming if you're constantly switching between your different tools and, you know, this kind of thing. Once you get going with an artwork and you've got your set of colours out, it's fine because you're kind of good to go. And you can give these just a little dust off on a scrap piece of paper. You don't have to wash them in between every single colour. Obviously, if you use a very strong dark colour like a black or a dark brown and then try and use like a, you know, a very pale blue, you're going to get some contamination there. But if you're using similar strengths of colours together, you know, similar values, then it's really not an issue, and I can tell you that from experience. But it is a bit of a faff to begin with, especially if you're not really sure, you know, like, oh, you know, which tools are for what or what works best. That's something that you have to find out as you go along, and that's something that you don't have an issue with stick pastels, because you just you know, you just wang it down and off you go. So that, I would say that there's an inconvenience factor there with the Panpastels. Let's start with a little bit of a really offensive yellow. That's so yellow, goodness. And I'm going to turn this slightly just so I don't stick my hand in things. So I'm going to pop a wee bit of that yellow down there. There we go. And that's showing up beautifully on that paper. Absolutely beautifully. It's quite nice actually, because it's not quite as offensive on the toned paper as it is in the pan. Just with a dry rag, I just like to take off the excess, just give it a wee rub. And if you treat these well, these little applicators, they'll last ages. If you're going to like hack away at things and rub away at things, they do degrade quite quickly. So you do have to be gentle with them. Okay, so let's pick up some red. And you can see there's no yellow coming off there at all, just to let you see. I'll put my red down here, and then I'm just going to start meandering my way in here. And you can see that it's lovely and soft, like it's going together really well. And there we go, blending in the middle, making quite a nice delicate orange, I have to say. And I mean, you can blend away till your heart's content, you really can. Yeah, I could spend ages just sitting here making this really smooth and pretty. It's very satisfying blending out Panpastels. And once again, there is zero dust anywhere. There is nothing coming off that anywhere. I'm not actually sure how long one of these pans would last someone. Unless you were a really, really heavy user, I'm pretty sure one of these pans would last a very, very long time, if not a lifetime if you look after them. That was really easy. It was actually very pleasant. It was very relaxing, and this little set of colours that's going on here is just making me really happy right now. Let's see what happens when we try it with the Rembrandt Pastels. Okay, I don't have much in the way of colours with the Rembrandt Pastels, so I've picked a really dark sort of greenish blue colour, and I've picked a very pale colour as well. I'm going to put this down first, and again, put some layers down, just get some of that on there. Bring this down a bit. Okay, so the tooth's pretty full there. I can see that I've covered up quite a lot of the texture of the paper, and I'll pop down this. I love this colour. It's not blue and it's not green and it's not grey. It is somewhere in the middle. So the first thing that's really annoying me about this is all this excess dust round the sides. It's just, yuck. Because that's got to go somewhere. You know, it has to go somewhere. So I've put that down straight from the stick. In the interests of fairness, I'm going to use the Panpastel applicator. I'm also going to do a blend with my fingers after this as well, just so that you can see as well. But I thought this would help make it a bit more of a level playing field. So put a fresh sock on, and yeah, let's go. Okay, so I'm going to pull this up the way first of all, and you can see there, and they're blending in together, absolutely no problem at all. And I'm actually able to pull up some of this darker colour, and that's coming together fairly nicely. Now if I just turn it over to grab this paler colour, That's a lot of dust that's just come off that. That's tons of dust. Lots and lots of dust. And I feel like I could maybe blend away here for a while, and I might be not at a lost cause. I don't think that's the case. It just doesn't seem to be as smooth, and it actually makes me want to stick my finger in it and do it with my finger. Again, I suppose we can layer these up. But this pale colour, when it blends out, I mean, look how much it's standing out on the paper there. You know, it looks very similar to these paler colours here. But when you start to blend it, it just seems to... I'm getting a lot of transfer as well. Yeah, it's just kind of... And I can see a lot of the paper there in the middle. Like, I can see the tone of the paper coming through. Let's try it with the Artful Pastels now. Thankfully, I do have offensive yellow and offensive red colours in this one too. And I'm making sure I'm not pressing hard here. I'm not interfering with the tooth of the paper too much. Oh wow, that really is offensive. Can you see how much the colour's disappearing? That vibrancy's disappearing. If I zoom right in, that's about as close I can get. The pan pastel actually looks out of focus because it's such a soft blend, but you can see that with both the Rembrandt pastel and with the Artful pastel, that texture of the paper, the stick pastel has just stuck to it. So what's happening there is you're going to get inconsistencies. So if you wanted a really smooth blend, you know, if it was like a sunset or something like that, there's virtually no comparison between these and this one. So we're going to do it with our finger now, and for the stick pastels I'm going to use the shavings rather than the actual stick, because again I want it to be a fair comparison. So we'll do that. I'm going to do the Rembrandt ones first because they're right here. Got a little flower palette here that'll do nicely. That's so satisfying. See that? Oh. And I think this is one of the things about stick pastels for me as well. See, by the time you've snapped some in half and put some chisel edges on and scraped some off, you can go through this quite quickly to the point where there's not really, especially with these little half sticks, and there's not really enough to hold on to anymore. So I think in that sense they're a little bit more wasteful than the pan pastels. So again, just make sure my finger's clean. So we'll start with the pink and just pick that up with my finger. And I'll pop that down, and I'll use my other finger for the purple. I just feel as if it's really sparse. You know, when you're doing it with the pan pastel, it feels very rich, and even if you've not put a lot of pastel on your sponge, it feels like there's a lot there, whereas I feel as if I'm constantly like, oh, I need more with the stick pastels. But that's lovely. Look at that, so soft. Such a nice blend, and these blend much, much better with your finger than they do applying them straight to the paper. Again, a lot of excess dust round about though, and not quite as vibrant, but let's do some pinks and purples from the other sets, because I'm pretty sure I've got pinks and purples in the other sets. Okay, here we go. Grab my pink. Much easier to pick up than the Rembrandt Pastels. Oh, okay then. And already I feel as if that's going down much more nicely than the Rembrandt Pastels. I don't know why. They may not be, but that's just the way I feel. I'm having the same problem with the... Oh. See what now, this is what I'm saying about the messy factor. This is the bit that I'm not so keen on. This is a lot of mess compared to what was going on with my coveted pan pastels. But again, blending very nicely. Lots of spare dust, but still a very nice blend. And very quickly we'll do the pan pastels now. So another disadvantage to pan pastels that I've just thought about is, see, if you're using a lot of colours, the pans themselves take up a lot of space. You do actually get these trays that you can buy. They look like big muffin trays. I've got one here. So basically what you do is, especially if you're working on a piece, you can plonk your colours in that you're using, but it has a lid on it. So you keep the screw lids off to the side. And then when you're finished for the day, you can pop that on to stop anything getting into them. But this is big. Look at the size of it. So when your pan pastels are laid out, they do take up a lot of space. And I appreciate that not everyone's got space for stuff like that. And right, there you go. That's what I've picked up in my finger. All the dust's still in the pan. And I'm just going to smoosh a little bit of that in. It's so silky under your finger. It's so silky. Like I can't get over that. And let's grab a purple. This is going to be a little bit more delicate because these colours are a little bit lighter. So I've actually picked up too much there and I've been able to tap it off back into the pan. Again, minimising the amount of cleaning up I'm going to have to do. I mean, let's face it, there's going to be a lot of cleaning up after this video. There's no two ways about it. And there we go. Just, there's no effort with these. Like, there's absolutely no effort with that. It's so soft. The other thing as well is you don't have to work hard with them to blend them. That was so quick and so easy. I've got a tiny little bit of dust there. Okay, so I hope these little experiments have maybe helped you learn a wee bit more about these different types of pastels. As I say, the stick pastels, it's just the brands that I happen to have. I'm sure there will be some sort of variation depending on what brand you go for and what price bracket you're in as well. I will put the prices of all three of these up on the screen for you here. Obviously, these are likely to fluctuate. I'm saying this a lot just now, but everything's so volatile. But just to give you like a ballpark and a comparison. So let's talk about, first of all, the Panpastels. Pros for the Panpastels. Number one of these is going to last you such a long time. The amount of dust and mess that they cause is absolutely minimal, especially if you are someone who has respiratory issues or just like me, you don't like cleaning up pastel dust. In terms of application, they're also very economical as well. A tiny bit goes a long way. But for me, the lay down with these and the actual physical act of laying them down, there's something very nice about it. It's so silky, it's so soft, and your blending is absolutely effortless. The cons for the Panpastels: ridiculously expensive. If you want any sort of precision or variation, you have to buy all these separate tools and peripheries. The other downside to them is the amount of space that they take up. See, if I just zoom out here, they're everywhere. You know, like I've got some here, I've got some up here, I've got them over here. If you're struggling for desk space, this isn't going to be the best idea for you. Moving on to the Rembrandt Pastels. I'm not going to do pros and cons for these ones because I've only got them in a very limited selection. They do feel quite soft and smooth going down. Not as soft and smooth as the Panpastels, but certainly smoother than the Artful Pastels. The blending's not great on them, and they don't erase as well as the other two. Talking about the Artful Pastels, which is an absolute riot over there. I can't show you, they're actually out of camera shot. They're like, that's the start of the stick pastels there, and the Artful Pastels are everywhere. The pros and cons for the Artful Pastels: they are much more budget friendly but still retaining an excellent standard. They come in a really good range of colours without being overwhelming. There's 48 colours. And they come in nice sturdy packaging. They come in little slide boxes. I'll show you, it's like a matchbox. And this. So they're nice and easy to tuck away, and they're easy to store as well. You know, they're easy to stack. If you don't want to be overwhelmed by the sheer volume of colours like the Rembrandts that come in 218, this is your man here. Or maybe you're someone that doesn't use pastel that often, this is a great option for you. They erase really well, and they also go down on the paper quite well with an application straight from the stick. This was a lot more consistent than the Rembrandt Pastels as well. As for blending, they seem to operate better by using the scraping off method. If you're going to cover larger areas, if you're wanting to do a skyline or a background or something, they seem to be better for that. Straight from the stick, they don't fare so well, but the precision that you get from them when you're actually laying down straight off the stick is very good. The cons about these, one of the pros is actually the cons as well. You're very limited in your colour range. For an experienced person with pastels, that's not going to be an issue because they will know how to layer and blend to get the colours that they want. Covering large areas straight from the stick, not great with these pastels. But other than that, I really don't have much to say in the way of the fact that the obvious thing with stick pastels is that they're very messy. The residue that comes off them in terms of dust when you're actually working, but also the likes of this. If this was a pan pastel, you could tap it straight back into your pan and put the lid on it. You can't do that with this. Unless you want to make yourself something to do that, that's fine. At least the mess is contained, whereas I just feel there was a lot of excess. There was quite a lot of wastage. As I was talking about earlier, by the time you've chiselled yourself off an end and you've scraped off and you've snapped in half and one thing and another, and saying then you're going to get to that point where you've got this little nub. You can use things like a nutmeg grater, you know, once you get down to that last tiny little piece that you can't hold, and you could actually grate it into a little container and keep it and use it for this finger application that we did. That's a lot of faff as far as I'm concerned. Again, maybe if you're a pastel artist and that's your primary medium, that would be something that'd be useful. But for an occasional pastel painter like myself, or for colourists as well, they're not really ideal. With all that out of the way now, I hope that you have found this useful. I have tried to be impartial, and I have to say I'm always honest about stuff like this. I found it quite difficult because I am biased towards the pan pastels. For me, stick pastels have their place, and there are certain things that I will use them for, especially when it comes to detail in a painting. Or, you know, if I'm working in like really, really tight areas, they're much, much easier, much more useful. And in truth, the best thing to do is have a combination of the two. There you go, I've said it. That's not really helpful for doing a comparison. But you can understand why I'm saying that. But also as well, the mess factor is a big thing for me. I just hate the mess. I can work away with pan pastels without ever getting my fingers dirty, with no hassle whatsoever. And when I'm finished, you just screw the lid on and that's it. But I hope I have been as impartial as possible with this. If you have a favourite brand of stick pastel, I would love to hear about it in the comments, and I think it's something that I could maybe try more of just for myself because my experience is quite limited. But in terms of the two formats, I hope that that's given you something to think about today. So all that's left to do is to go and clean up my pastel dust. No, I'm kidding. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. I really appreciate it. I hope you've enjoyed yourself today too. I have. I'm not looking forward to what I've got to do afterwards. All you need to do now is stay safe and please take care of each other. And I will see you back in the cave on Thursday for another video. So have a great day, everyone. Bye for now.